here, Carbon Hot Springs, right next to a creek. And can you tell us your name?
Thank you. I'm Dave Leake.
Dave Leake. Where are you from originally?
I grew up in a suburb of LA called La Cañada. It's
Okay.
up there by Pasadena where the fires were in Altadena.
Okay.
Yep. Up by the Arroyo Seco where that Arroyo River comes out of the San Gabriel Mountains up by Angeles Crest Highway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So we've met through dancing, and we both discovered that we have like a passion for meditation, and you're a meditation teacher.
Right.
Yeah. What initially drew you to meditation, and how has meditating improved your life?
Thank you. Meditation, what drew me to meditation was struggling in my mid-20s with kind of feeling like I was kind of hitting a wall of my potential.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I was capable of so much more, but I was struggling with habits and patterns that weren't serving me. I was drinking a little too much that way. I was getting interested in yoga asana, taking yoga classes, learning all these poses and stretches, and I knew that meditation was this thing that yoga had, kind of the crest jewel of yoga was meditation. But I looked at these yoga teachers. They were sitting in front of the class before they're teaching a class, kind of sitting up like this, all, like austere, kind of, and I didn't know what to make of it.
Okay.
It's kind of cynical.
Mm-hmm.
So I was struggling with addiction. Alcohol was kind of a demon in my corner that I knew was going to have to go if I was going to, to rise up to my potential.
Yeah.
And so I started looking for answers to that question, meditation. I started looking for teachers and going to hear teachers talk about the practices they taught.
Okay. And you were like in your mid-20s when that happened?
I was in my late 20s, between 27 and 30. I think I learned when I was about 30, 31, something around there. 2006 I learned.
2006.
Yeah, in Los Angeles, in West Hollywood.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was your experience like when you first meditated?
Wow. It was so ridiculously simple and profound at the same time. I went to this introductory talk in this guy's apartment. This guy I had met who was the manager of this meditation teacher, who's my teacher to this day. And I went to hear a talk that he gave, my teacher, that evening talk. This is a talk that I had on my calendar, for probably a year and a half. I knew this talk happened on a Sunday every couple times a year, and I just kept putting it off. And one day I was going to go on it, so I finally went. And I didn't have to hear more than about 2 or 3 minutes out of this guy's mouth, and just his presence, and start hearing about this practice and all the ways that it helps people reach their potential, helps them with anxiety and fight disease, in the background. And I could just tell I'll be signing up for this course. So I learned the next day. I signed up for the course, which is over four days. It was 4 sessions, and the first meditation we had in the course, we were a small group of about, I think we were 4 or 5 people in the course, and it was a feeling of like coming home, like a homecoming, and almost like falling asleep, but still being aware that I was conscious, and feeling like I had about an hour nap just by sitting there for 20 minutes with my eyes closed, and just felt rejuvenated, soothed, like welcomed home, like just coming back to myself in a way I'd never experienced. It's profound, yeah.
Sounds profound.
Yeah.
Was it emotional at all, or was it more like a spiritual experience, or what was it like?
The first meditation, not so much emotional, but when we had to go home that day and then practice meditating on our own over the 4 days of the course, and each day I was getting familiar with sitting in that space, that still space with myself. It began to be over that week, and then the weeks, and then that first month, definitely I didn't have emotional upset or like big emotional release, but I had more and more just this feeling of finding myself and a trust in life and just an assuredness that like things are going to work out now, and every meditation was different in its quality, but always very gave me a lot of solace and a lot of rejuvenation. Yeah.
Wow. So it sounds like as you meditated more, you began to build like a relationship with yourself. And
Absolutely.
the quality of each meditation, what would you say about that? Like, is every meditation that you do when you sit and practice, are they all the same, or do you like, what would you say about that?
That's a great question. They're always different. And in this particular approach to meditation, there's no controlling the outcome. We surrender the outcome to what happens in meditation, to the meditation itself. And so one meditation can be very thought-filled and just thinking, and other meditations you can sink down, go deep, go deeper. Sometimes you're on the surface. Sometimes it's a combination of being on the surface of your thoughts and down kind of, if your mind was like an ocean, and the surface of the ocean, the waves on the surface of the ocean were your thoughts and your thinking, like all the things I gotta do and gotta, and what about that, and conversations. And then down under the surface of the ocean where it's more still, and down at the floor of the ocean, even underneath the ocean itself is that quiet, still place. It's kind of going in that whole range of the surface of thoughts into the deep ocean, up and down. And I learned in the course that the quality of the meditations, the quality of the meditations and the thoughts in meditation were a part of the process and nothing to be alarmed about. And actually, it was a sign that something good is happening when there's thinking, because what I learned in the 4-day course is that that's a sign that the body's releasing and letting go of a lifetime of accumulated stress and overloads of experience from different things that have happened to us. So yeah, great question. Always a different experience. So I was trained to know that I'm not looking for the results of the meditation in the meditation. I'm looking for the results that it's giving me outside of my life, moving around the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
It sounds like the fountain of youth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good way to put it.
If you're letting go of accumulated stress, I can imagine that releasing stress, accumulated stress, it releases from your body, And so, is there like any scientific studies that kind of like show that with like meditation that you've seen?
There are a lot of studies in particular that were done on this technique in the 80s. Blue Cross Blue Shield, this insurance company, they contracted with University of California at Los Angeles, UCLA, to do a series of studies that were longitudinal. So they did follow-ups, and they did this study with novice meditators who were trained in this technique, but they'd really only been meditating, I think, for like 2 weeks or a month. They were students at UCLA. And there's a particular study that I learned about where they hooked them up to all kinds of garb, metrics. They had a measurement of their sweat on their palm of their hand. They had an IV up their arm to measure their blood chemistry. They had a gas mask on their face. They had the nodes on their brain to measure brain waves. And the topper is they had a thermometer up their rectum to measure the thermometer. So with all that garb on, even still, they measured the results of this meditation. One of the main things, there's a few things that came out of the study. One was that the body was resting up 2 to 5 times deeper than sleep by sitting for 20 minutes. And keep in mind, after the study was over, they asked these new meditators, how would you judge those meditations in the study? And they said they must have been some of the worst meditations they've had, because they had all that garb on. Even still, with that, so you can imagine if they had none of that stuff on them, that laboratory and measurement equipment, that maybe even the quality of rest would be even more. But even with all that, the rest was up to 5 times deeper than sleep. So this meditation in particular has been shown to be very restful. It puts the brainwave into this alpha state where the brain starts to have this coherence of the brain waves, which is what we see in flow states when people are in the hyper creativity. And like you mentioned, the stress that's released in the body, it is in the chemistry, it is kind of in the physiology, and that there's not like definitive metrics to show that is actually happening in a very concrete way, but they've been able to measure the length of the telomeres. The telomeres are something that shows how the body's aging. And one of the things that came out of that study is that meditators on average practicing this technique, in a chronological aging sense, most people that don't meditate, in a 12 months period of time, they age about 14 to 16 months. So they're aging an extra 3 or 4 months. The meditators were shown to decrease their aging in the first 5 years of meditating. They decreased their aging by like 3 years. So they were on an average year, they were aging about 9 to 12 months of aging, so under the chronological year. So they were aging a full 12 months a year, and they measured this by their skin elasticity, and they measured it by, through other metrics. That's one of the primary studies. But of the different styles of meditation, there's hundreds of studies that were done on this. Now you have to keep in mind, these were all contracted by the Transcendental Meditation Organization, so there could be some biases in the outcomes. I don't know how rigorous they were, but there's a good body of research out there.
Okay.
And across the board, whatever meditation style you're practicing, it's irrefutable now that the predominance of evidence is that meditation is good on so many levels for the body and the mind,
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah.
Changed my life.
Yeah.
For sure.
I want to hear more about your story of that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I'll definitely get into it once that time comes. So when it comes to you're becoming a teacher, like what was your journey in becoming a teacher, and why are you a teacher in meditation, and what meditation do you teach?
Right. So I teach a practice called Vedic Meditation. That's spelled V-E-D-I-C. And Vedic comes from the word Veda. And Veda is this term that means science of life, basically. It's the knowledge of how life works under the hood, if you will, under the hood of the car. How is nature doing things? So it's an ancient science. It comes out of ancient India, but it's not it's not knowledge that's particular to one part of the world. This is universal knowledge. So this technique I teach is called Vedic meditation, and my teacher was, for about a decade and a half, a teacher of transcendental meditation in Australia for about 15 years. He left that organization because it got very large and political, and he went on his own and did his own thing. But he still teaches it in the purity and the way that he was taught by his teacher, who was Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. Some people might know as the teacher to the Beatles. He trained the Beatles to meditate. My teacher was in India running teacher training when the Beatles came through, and they actually some of them went through the teacher training. They didn't graduate. They were doing a lot of drugs and things like that. So anyhow, I teach Vedic meditation. My teacher is a world-renowned Vedic scholar, and he's actually been recently recognized by the king of the yogis in India, called the Shankaracharya, who's basically the man in India that oversees all Vedic wisdom around all these ancient sciences of yoga and meditation. So he's been recognized and given a title, which is he's called a Mandaleshwar. He's basically the first non-Indian householder. So he's not a monastic. He has a family. So he trained me in India over 3 months. I went in residence to India, and I stayed 3 months, and we went through a rigorous training process where we not only ramped up our own meditation program to the point where we were meditating for about, at our highest peak of the 3 months, we were up for 2 weeks meditating about 14 hours a day, doing our meditation rounds. We do a specific program for teacher training that the common meditator doesn't need to get involved with. We ramp up the process because they want the teachers that come out of that program to be as clear and as free of stress in the physiology as possible. So in addition to the knowledge that you need to teach this, to guide people and to be be there for the rest of their life for them as their guide, and so they can understand what's happening as their life unfolds with meditation and answering questions and learning how to teach them. We ramp up our own program so we can be really clear channels to be that. And to get to that point, to become a teacher, I had to go through a lot of prerequisite training. It took me about a decade to get through it. I knew the first year that I learned to meditate that I wanted to teach this because it was so powerful for me, and I just I couldn't imagine a more profound thing to give to people, to give people the gift of this practice, which is so simple, it's ridiculously easy, it's mobile, you can do it like almost anywhere you are. You don't need any apps, any technology, and the results are just profound across the board. So after those prerequisites were completed, there's about 12 different courses you have to complete before you apply to become a teacher. And when you get accepted, you go on a residence training for 3 months. So that's the process of becoming a Vedic meditation teacher.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's a long road, but it's well worth it. And it's been one of the most fantastic journeys of my life. It's been.
I'm sure there's people out there who are like yearning to go on a journey, especially one of this nature. So this is,
it's fantastic. If you learn this practice and you take the 4-day course, all of that knowledge, if you're interested, that I, went through learning to become a teacher, you as a common meditator, you can take those courses, and they don't require you to become a teacher. These are courses that any Vedic meditator can take, but they are the prerequisite for becoming a teacher. But they're just fantastic understandings of just the knowledge behind this technique, where it comes from. So it's a great journey.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It sounds great.
Yeah, a lot of fun and great community because you do it with other meditators.
Yeah.
You share meals together and you listen to knowledge and ask questions, Q&A, and
yeah, that's an important aspect too, right? Like, how do you yeah, I'm sure there's people who are searching for community and are like dehydrated of a lack of community. And so I guess this is a great way of like a great community people can plug into. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's essential to be successful, in my opinion. From the different meditators I've met from different styles and traditions, to have follow-up and not only have a follow-up from a teacher that's there for you, but having fellow meditators to share experience with and to share. It's something so special and so wonderful to have a group of people that share a common practice and a common body of knowledge. Because on your own, there's a small percentage of the population that's meditating, and it's less than 1% of people that have a regular meditation practice. So you're kind of a loner out there, when you're doing your daily day-to-day life. So having community is good for so many reasons. Particularly in this practice, there's an opportunity once you learn every week to attend a group meditation where meditators gather and they meditate together, and then we have questions and answers, and sometimes we'll go out and have food afterwards. But having that experience, and you have other meditators in the group that meditate for longer, some are new, so they have questions that are different than you have, and it's just building that knowledge base and assuring yourself that you're on the right track. It's great. It's fun too.
Sounds priceless, honestly.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, for someone's mental health, emotional health, and overall well-being.
Overall, absolutely. I mean, we know we don't. I mean, we thrive as we're social beings. We just need that connection. It's just
Absolutely.
yeah.
Right. I want to ask a particular question. Where is it at? So, how can meditation help? How can meditation benefit like military members or those dealing with high stress environments and occupations?
Great question. So, high stress and high demand situations require people to have clear thinking, to stay calm under pressure, and to perform their duties accurately, and precisely. And that's one of the 3 things that this meditation is particularly helpful with. It helps people to clear out those backlogs of stress and overloads of experience from their life that are what we call in neuroscience PCCs, or premature cognitive commitments. Basically, they're the stress triggers, the things that have a given situation that might be startling or surprising, bring up past experiences and have people react in ways that are not commensurate with what's actually happening in the moment, and just have the reactions that they're not keyed into the present moment. So for a soldier, for anybody in the military who has people's lives at stake, and have duties that require them to act swiftly, to use their full brain power, and to do things accurately and calmly under pressure. This practice is profound, because it's been shown, studies that I talked to. There's also other studies. I think maybe it was the stat study, or maybe some studies similar to that showed that those three things were improved dramatically. People performing more accurately at what they're doing, staying calm under pressure, and the third factor was there's three things that they measured. The body staying very, very calm. So, in an ideal world, a military unit that's all meditating, they're going to have that cohesiveness, because they're going to have, if they have that common practice, not only do you build, I imagine you have more experience in this, much more than I do, but that community you build in a military setting of doing those things together, those shared things. Imagine if you have this practice that you all practice that helps you come back to yourself, helps you shrug off and let go of the startling or traumatic experiences, or the demands that you have to face getting trained in the military, all the physical challenges. Allows your body to recuperate, allows your emotional body to recuperate, and then you come back into your duty, and you come to it with just a clean slate. You're calm, you're settled. There's a statistic out there. I don't know if it's exactly 100% accurate, but the idea is that we're not using our full brain potential. Something like 2 to 3% of our full capacity that we're using, and that's because mostly of this accumulated stress that most of us have accumulated early on, up to like around age 20. Most of us have something like, scientists showed something like 200,000 of those premature cognitive commitments, those stressful situations we've had in our life that we haven't recovered from fully, that interfere with the way we interact with the present moment. So this practice starts to clear those out over time, and so like that, it's profound. And so in the business setting, you can imagine as well, this translates equally to the business setting. It's the same. It's different context, but similar situations in military and business.
Absolutely.
You have people that you need to relate to on a day-to-day basis. You can't be reacting to situations, in ways that, that aren't commensurate with what's actually happening. You need to be attentive to people, be a good listener. You need to be able to communicate well, and you need to stay calm. And you need to, building a business, you need to rejuvenate your energy. You need to basically have your body performing at its peak potential.
Absolutely. I'm gonna ask one last question. So, someone's listening to this interview, and they're like, okay, I love this. I want to take action. What's some immediate action that they can take to start a practice of meditating?
It's a great question, because these days we're inundated with meditation apps. There's guided meditations. There's apps on your phone you can download. There's all kinds of places. There's all kinds of entry points, right? You can get started at a place that you want to get started at. But in the long game, if you really want to get mastery over meditation, what I'd recommend is first finding a practice that your body resonates with, a practice that feels good, and a teacher that teaches that practice, who has a track record of teaching, maybe several years, and look at where they've been trained, and look if there's a tradition or a body of knowledge behind the technique they're teaching. That's not just some recent thing that someone created last month from like some entrepreneur came up with something, some amalgam of some different things. So I would avoid the kind of the mishmash and the kind of choose your meditation menu, like trying something different every day, and find something that like your body resonates with, that feels good, that doesn't feel like another chore you have to do at the end of the day, but actually you look forward to, like, yes, I get to meditate, you know?
Woo!
Yeah!
Yeah, let's go.
Exactly. So, you know, if you can't afford to invest your time and money into getting a teacher, you know, at this time, you can start with something simple, like just giving yourself a commitment of at least 5 minutes twice a day, sitting yourself down. 5 minutes is an easy place to start for most people. Ultimately, we want to get to meditating for about 10 to 20 minutes a day. That's when we're going to get more rest. But give yourself 5 minutes just to find a comfy place, sit with your back supported. You don't need to sit upright like I am right now, not necessary. Definitely relax your body, sit back, get in a chair, you know, somewhere comfortable. Just let your eyes close and know that your mind, if you've never meditated before, your mind's going to be racing with all kinds of thoughts, because we have, like we talked about, all this accumulation of experiences and stress that we've accumulated over our life. So that's going to be going on. So that can be a little overwhelming for people. That's why a teacher is really helpful, because you can start to understand how do you handle thinking, and what's the role of thoughts in meditation. But you can start with that 5 minutes, just settling down and just noticing your body and just letting yourself relax. Find that twice a day. That's going to get you so far, but ultimately I'd say find that teacher that's got a track record, a body of knowledge behind what they're teaching, and a practice that feels good for your body.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. Is there any place that people can find you?
Yeah, you can find me on the Instagram at the Dave Leake. That's Leake, the Dave Leake. And you can also find me on my website at daveleakvedicmeditation.com.
Excellent. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Curtis.
everything.
Appreciate it. A lot of fun.
Yeah, totally. Love this. All right.